In the journey of faith, there is no more fundamental question than this. How can a person be made right with a holy and perfect God? This is not a trivial matter or a secondary point of doctrine, it is the very heart of the gospel. The eternal destiny of every soul hangs upon the answer. Many people inside the church, outside the church, believe that the path to God is paved with good intentions, moral efforts. They operate under the assumption that if their good deeds outweigh their bad deeds, God will surely accept them into his eternal kingdom. This is a common and tragically misguided understanding of how salvation is achieved, one that places the burden of righteousness squarely on the shoulders of sinful humanity. This perspective, this belief in human achievement as the means of salvation, is what the Bible calls a religion of works. It is the idea that you can earn your way to heaven. When the Bible speaks of works, it is referring to any human effort, religious activity, or moral achievement that a person performs with the goal of earning favor with God. This can encompass a vast range of activities. It might include formal religious ceremonies such as baptism, church attendance, or partaking in communion. It could involve acts of charity, like giving money to the poor or volunteering time for a good cause. It might also include personal disciplines, such as prayer, fasting, or attempting to follow a moral code like the Ten Commandments. All of these things might be good in and of themselves, but when they are done to earn salvation, they become dead works. The problem with a works-based system is that it fundamentally misunderstands the nature of God and the condition of man. It assumes that God operates on a system of merit, like an employer who pays a wage for a job well done. This framework reduces God to a cosmic scorekeeper who can be obligated by human performance. Furthermore, it fails to recognize the depth of human sinfulness. In stark contrast to the demanding and impossible system of works stands the glorious biblical doctrine of grace. Grace is one of the most beautiful words in Scripture, and its meaning is profound. The simplest and most accurate definition of grace is unmerited favor. It is God giving us what we do not deserve and could never earn. While works are about earning a wage, grace is about receiving a gift. A wage is owed, a gift is freely given. If you work for a week and your employer gives you a paycheck, that is not grace, that is justice. But if a stranger walks up to you and gives you $1 million for no reason, that is an act of grace. It is entirely undeserved. This is precisely how God deals with us in salvation. The Bible teaches that the wages of sin is death. Instead, he offers us the gift we do not deserve. The consistent testimony of the entire Bible: salvation has always been and will always be by grace alone, through faith alone. This is not a new idea that began in the New Testament with Paul. From the earliest pages of Scripture, God has dealt with his people on the basis of grace. When Adam and Eve sinned, they tried to cover their shame with fig leaves. God rejected their effort. He provided garments of skin. A sacrifice was necessary to cover sin. This was an act of grace. God provided what they could not provide. Abraham is held up as the supreme example of justification by faith. Abraham believed God, and it was counted to him as righteousness. Romans 4:3. His righteousness was not based on his obedience, not based on his circumcision, nor on any other work he performed. It was credited because he believed God's promise. The law had not even been given yet. God's method of salvation has never changed, not based on human performance. The law of Moses did not create a new path to salvation through works. To fully grasp the glory of grace, we must understand the utter futility of trying to please God through our own efforts. First reason: works can never meet God's perfect standard. The standard for entrance into heaven is not relative goodness, it is absolute perfect righteousness. James chapter 2 verse 10 makes this devastatingly clear. For whoever keeps the whole law but fails in one point, has become guilty of all of it. Imagine a chain with 100 links. If just one link breaks, the entire chain is broken. In the same way, one sin, one lie, one impure thought is enough to shatter God's law and render us guilty before him. Our works-based resume is disqualified by our first failure. Secondly, works fail because they come from a corrupt source. The human heart, in its natural, unregenerate state, is deceitful above all things and desperately sick. Thirdly, works done for salvation are an attempt to pay a debt that is infinitely beyond our means. It is an infinite debt owed to an infinite God, and it requires an infinite payment. Understanding that salvation is by grace alone does not lead to a life of laziness or licentiousness. Some may ask, if we are saved by grace and not works, does that mean we can go on sinning? The Apostle Paul answers this question with a resounding, by no means. True, saving grace does not just pardon us from the penalty of sin, it also transforms us and delivers us from the power of sin. Grace is not a license to sin, but the power to live righteously. When God saves a person by His grace, He gives them a new heart and a new nature that desires to please Him. Good works are not the root of salvation, but they are always the fruit of salvation. The Christian life, therefore, is not lived in a desperate attempt to earn God's favor, but in a joyful response to the favor we have already received. We do not obey God in order to be saved, we obey God because we are saved. If your salvation depends on your performance, you can never be sure you have done enough, but when you understand that your salvation rests entirely on the finished work of Christ and the unbreakable promise of God's grace, you can have true and lasting assurance. The clear takeaway is this: stop trying to earn what God offers freely as a gift. That is the gospel of grace. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and check out our playlist and channel for more content.